Hello, hello, hello.
Hi,
We are live. We are live.
we're live and we're live in a very different setting again. Um,
It's you. You're always in different settings.
I know, but just I look like shit. I look like I'm a bit off my head, if I'm honest. I've jumped like an owl. I'm like this.
Like an
Um,
owl.
a night owl, because I am on some very strong medication and just without sounding absolutely like cliche and cringy and it like as if rolling your eyes, but basically I wasn't very well at the weekend. I ended up having to go to hospital and have like an emergency operation. And today I want to talk about literally this is why insurance is so important, because you do not know what's around the corner and what's going to happen, or if things are going to change dramatically from one day to the next.
Completely agree. No, I think it's a really good point, and I think me and you haven't spoke about it anyway until this, but like I didn't say it until we're on here. But like, so I was in hospital all weekend with my wife for not for the similar thing, but same thing. So that's why it's a really good thing. Not same as in this idea of Friday night she was fine, woke up Friday morning and she wasn't, and then straight into A&E and stuff. And so you just don't know. And that's when you sent me the message about this. I was like, what? That's mad, because you don't.
Right.
Yeah, she's fine now, but like similar thing, it's all fine. But it is one of those, and it's not about I just remembered it's one of those things that you're so right about. This importance of insurance is that was going through my head the whole time when she
Yeah,
was there. Probably with
I
you
was
as well. I was thinking, oh my gosh, if this is, I was awful. I don't know if you ever get this. Every time I've been A&E, it sounds so bad. This is going to sound so bad. Let's say this, but every time I'm in A&E, because obviously I've been sick all year, and I'm like, is it cancer? No, it's not cancer, Ash. It's fine. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm just suffering for no fucking reason. I'm not even going to get paid. Like, is that like I'm paying my insurance? Come on, just give me some. Like, I don't mean that
give
in a
me a
bad way.
payout. Give me
Just give
some
me
money
some
there.
form of payout. Viva won't pay for that, so
You get
reassess.
income protection would though.
I know, but I'm not that bad. I'm back at work, so it's one of those things that.
No, but I was when I was in like, because I've got a bit of a phobia of like needles, and like I don't mind, like if I always think with pain, you're in pain, you'll have painkillers that'll wear off or it'll get better, but needles and having things like going down for surgery and stuff like that like scares me. And I was sat there in the room on my own, and I'm thinking, right, they say to you whenever you get a surgery done, if you do pass away, like there's a risk that you might pass away, blah blah. And when they left, I was sat on my own, and I was thinking, I was like, the kids would be minted at least, like about my life insurance.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I haven't finished my will yet, where it says that, like, because I'm putting in my will, like obviously touch wood, if I ever did pass away, the money that I've got, I want it to be where if it's left, that if Keogh remarried, he couldn't have access to that money. Like it
Goes
goes
to
to
the children.
because I'm not having some new fancy bit being swung around the Caribbean cruise with my money that I've left. So I was
Putting it in
thinking,
trust.
yeah, and I was like, right, okay, I need to start, but it sounds daft, but that's when you realise why the product, like that's when the product's going to work, and
Yeah.
that thing of straight away, you're not very well, and you say it all the time, but it does. I went through it at the weekend, not very well. First thing you think, am I going to be all right? Money. That's it.
Yeah.
Am I going to get money? And like obviously I'm not working now.
Yeah.
Thank God I'm in a position where I've got an amazing team. And Millie, I voice noted Millie this morning, and I was like, right, you're going to be going to the next level now, Millie. She was like, what do you mean? I was like, hold tight, hon, get strapped in. I'm going to start like basically pretending I want to try and be where come the new year, apart from actually speaking to clients, I don't do anything else. And I just speak to clients and just create awareness and grow the business. And I was like, this is the perfect opportunity. Try and flip something that's shit and turn it into something good.
Yeah.
I can't come to work. Right, well, now I have to let Millie start having more control. I have to give Millie more opportunity to learn. So she's had about 18 voice notes off me this morning. She's going to be hating her life.
I love it. You're very true though with the idea of it's weird how quickly that's what your brain goes to. Because I remember walking the dog when I like in March when I got diagnosed with didn't get diagnosed, like we like what, and it's just this is the type of topic. It's like why insurance is really important, and it's really easy to not think about it when or think like, oh yeah, you pay your premiums, it is what it is. But there's a weird feeling when I remember walking I was walking the dog, and I think they'd thrown the C word around. They'd gone, okay, this could be this. I remember saying this to you, I think, and being like, well, but I remember thinking that whole time I did this like 5-kilometer dog walk, not listening to any podcast, which was very rare for me. And I remember thinking, all right, so if it's bad, then okay, the house is covered. She wouldn't have to work. That's, and you go through this kind of, it's such a weird, and do you know what? It was a really weird peace of mind, even though everything in the end, it came out, it took like 7 months to find out what it was, and it was okay. But it was such a, like, when you're stressed at that point, when people are going, and this is the thing people need to know the importance of insurance, is when you're stressed at that point of like, we don't know. I think the hardest bit of a lot of these diagnoses is when they don't know and they're going through it could be, but you're not thinking about the money at that point. Do you know what I mean? I had the moment when I was like, because otherwise I would have been like, there was a really weird moment of like, if anyone ever wonder why you're paying for it, I was like, it paid for itself just in that way of just being like, okay, I'm just going to deal with my health now because I know that my family are going to be okay no matter what this outcome will be. You might be devastated, but they're going to be okay.
No, but that thing that you've just been talking about, how many times I've had where clients have either said, I'll come back to you, or have said, I'm not going to take out critical illness now, I'm going to do this, whatever they might have done. And then they ring you and say, I want to get some critical illness cover now. All right, okay. And whenever a client does that, I'm always like,
what's happened? Yeah.
What's the new, spurred? Sometimes it might be that a friend of theirs being diagnosed and it's hit home. And then other times it's, well, the doctor's sending me for this. And I'm like, too late. It's too late. Stop. Like, and from an advice, obviously, if this was aimed at clients, anyone who isn't in the industry and is just listening, dear God, if there's something that you want covering, just get it done now. Because the amount of times where you're then not lucky enough to be able to get it because you've had something go wrong medically and you can no longer get insured, or you could have had a payout and you never took it out.
Yeah.
Or you get referrals that take God knows how long, and then it puts it on hold, and then something does come at the end of it, and then you're not going to be covered for it because then you're going to have an exclusion where you wouldn't have had before. So anyone who wants to get insured, just do it. Just get insured, because this type of stuff is why you pay for insurance. It's for having the peace of mind and that security to know that if something goes wrong, if shit hits the fan, you're going to be all right financially, right?
Yeah.
But from an advisor point of view, like, we need to be able to be confident enough to say this to clients. So to say to a client, if a client says to me, and I never used to, it does come with like practicing and feeling comfortable. The amount of times I've had it where a client said to me, right, well, I'll just leave, say they're getting rated for the critical illness. Critical illnesses are obviously more expensive, and it's got the ratings on it are usually a lot more harsher in terms of the value at the end of it.
Higher likely of being claimed. That's why. Isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So they'll go, right, well, I'll just say that's going to be too expensive. I'll just leave it for now. And I'm always like, look, please, I wouldn't advise you just leave it. I said, reduce it. Don't have the ideal amount. Don't have, I'm not saying you spend over what you want to spend, but having something is better than having nothing at all. I said, and I always say to them, you've got to imagine that when we take out insurance, when I'm doing this insurance for you, I'm acting as if this is going to get paid out in the next month. Like, that's how I view when I speak to clients. If you know that in the next 9 months, year, whatever it might be, you're not going to get cancer, then just ring me in 8 months' time when you know it's coming. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one knows when it's going to happen. So, like, the one that I get all the time is smokers. Right, well, I'm stopping smoking now. All right, well, how long haven't you been smoking for? 3 months. Right, well, if it's in 12 months, you still class as a smoker. All right, okay, well, I'll do it in 9 months. You might be dead in 9 months. You might have had cancer in 9 months. And being able to say that to a client and say, right, yeah, you might only have half of what you want right now, but in 9 months' time, we'll redo it when you are then a non-smoker, as long as your medical hasn't changed or whatever. But it's better to make sure that you've got that there, something, rather than having absolutely nothing at all. And like, from an advisor point of view, being able to put that ownership onto the client and say to them, this is on you, this is your insurance, you need to make sure that you are covered correctly. I'm going to show you how you can do it, but you have to say yes and go. So like things like randomly going into hospital really put into perspective how important insurance is, but how important it is to make sure that clients actually understand how important it is, because we just take for granted that they just know that you're not going to be able to get covered if you're getting investigated for something. No, they don't. The amount of times I get clients who say, well, so what, they're not going to pay out if I get diagnosed with this? And I'm like, are you for real? What, so you think that if you ring me now and say to me, I'm getting a scan on my breast, I want to get critical illness cover, of course, they're either not going to cover you for the breast cancer, or they're not going to cover you at all until your referral is completed.
Yeah.
Well, this is why it's a scam, insurance, isn't it? This is why it's a bit of a joke. And I'm like, how is it a scam? I said, if anything, it's you who are being
You're
scammed.
trying to be a scam. Yeah, that's
you don't want insurance until you think you're going to need to use it, which I get in terms of like, wouldn't that be ideal if that's the way the world worked? But it doesn't. Like,
no. Oh no,
let's
I think
just take out car insurance 2 seconds before I get hit by a bus. We'll be sound.
Yeah, just hit the button and it's like done.
Yeah,
There you go.
oh, all right, there you go. I've only paid for 3 days cover and I've got my claim.
Like, it is a that like is something that you see so many people do. Like, and something you just said then before was this thing of, we assume, I'm the sucker for it. I'm the same with everything, with especially because I've been in your industry. Like I just assume, like I'll have chats with people down like neighbors, and I'm like, well, they'll say, oh, we couldn't do this because this reason. Now I get really, I'm quite a sucker for it. I'm a real skepticism because I get very annoyed. I'm just like, your own bloody fault then, mate. Like I really am, like because my family we're in the industry, or my clients are in the industry. I have to sometimes stop back and be like, if they've never met anyone, like I don't know if you find this, because you know so many people in the industry. My social media is filled every day with advisors, mortgage brokers, insurance brokers. Like I had the same thing with when the standard variable rates with the mortgages. Everyone was like, "Oh, my mortgage," and I'm like, "Really? Like really? Like that's your own fault. Like you should have done that. You should have checked that." Now the thing is, I do forget though. Just like they're not surrounded by it all the time.
Yeah,
and so. And so it is, and you're like, okay, well then that means that we have to sometimes, and I do think that, me included, with social and things like, sometimes we forget, and then we have to be like, well, they all know that, and then we're not going to talk about this thing because we all know that, and you're like, no, they don't know that.
Don't have a clue. It's almost to the point where you feel as if you're being borderline insulting sometimes. Yeah. But you've got to remember, they do not have a clue. Not a clue. Like some people do, but a lot of clients genuinely can't believe. I had one the other day. I'd done a GP.
Oh, we're going on technical. There you go.
Call coming in there, coming off. I had one the other day. She'd said, put everything through, did a full GP report, came back, being postponed, won't tell me why. So I message, they won't tell me why, obviously it's through data protection, but there's obviously must be something on your report. Oh yeah, I've got an outstanding referral for X, Y, and Z for 3 different things. I was like, I asked you at least 3 times. Oh, I didn't think that'd matter because I haven't been actually diagnosed with it. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, oh, and then you stand and you think, that gives me major anxiety, because then I start thinking, holy shit, like, how can people not know that? Like, no matter how many times I ask the question, they still don't get it. So it's like, always treat clients as if they have not a Scooby-Doo about anything at all. Just like I always say, if it's not just for your own conscience, but for the simple fact of knowing that they have been told about it, they are aware of how it works, and they need to be, upfront and honest about what they're doing before they take it out. That doesn't come around and bite you on the ass.
It's also selective. The selective thing is quite funny. So like, without getting too boring into the psychological side of it. So our brain only really retains about 20% of what is said. So people make me laugh with this, and so they say this about reality is just your perception of reality. Because if I'm in a place, you're in an environment, you ever had this happen where you both your friends are at the same party, but you both remember very different things, and that's because you've taken 20% of one thing and I've taken 20% of another, but it's not the same. They could even be completely different. And the issue with this is that we, as you know, with when you speak to a client, that's why notes and like compliance is so important with that, of putting the notes, making sure you sent the right forms to the client, because a client, if they don't remember what you said, they will just say, "You never told me that," and you're like,
Yeah.
I mean, how many times are you doing this? I remember doing this all the time when I was a broker and an estate agent as well, where people, you know, when you want to go, look, I don't mean it's really rude, but you're not actually that special. Like, I say the same thing to every single person, and I speak to
Yeah, you
100
have like
people.
your
I'm like,
process.
yeah,
Like
you do. You're like, I was like, I even do the same. I even do the same joke at this point here, and I do that. Like, the whole thing is the exact same. So I can 100% guarantee you I told you.
yeah.
Cannot guarantee that you didn't remember. I definitely told you. And it's really like frustrating when someone's going, "Well, they never told me." And you're like, "We did." And I think that's the thing. It's like, tell them 3 times. You know, it is like, do you have any thing? No, no, no. Do you have any? And then that, it's just madness, but it does to them. They don't know. It's no different than my accountant probably hates me, because I'm like that with, that's when you realize my accountant, I'm like, so can you explain to me again? So when does what? So with VAT, how does that work? And then like, and sorry, this thing about corporate, I don't understand this corporation tax thing. And I have a call with him probably once a month, and I book it in. He's like, what? He's like, just need to understand dividends, VAT, corporate, and he's like, we went over this like it last month. Nah, I don't really get it though. I'm still
Yeah,
like,
but that's again, that's that thing of, that comes back to, you are the professional and you've got the power and the knowledge to give them what they need. And it's all right, like you say, you can't control what they retain, you can't control what they listen to, but as long as you know you've given that information, then it's covering your backside. But having insurance is so important, just for the black and white reason of, if you die, who's looking after your family, even if it's just basic, just on that. But have the confidence in the product and in yourself to be able to say that to clients, to be able to use, you know, your own experiences in life. Everyone at some point knows someone who's gone through something, or they've gone through something. Like what's happened to me at the weekend, I'll go on about that to clients, because it's a very relevant thing, and it's a very good way. I always think whenever you're trying to explain something to someone that is very complicated because they know nothing about it, if you use something that's personal, something that's relatable, an actual real life scenario, it's much easier to understand.
it would. Like, I think about that when you're saying that. So like, I know when I was a mortgage broker, I became a good advisor when I bought my own house, because all of a sudden I understood it. And so I would say, I felt like this. And then they would go, oh yeah, I feel like that. And I think one thing is so right. When I was walking and thinking of that thing, like in March, and thinking, this is why I'm paying for this. It was the first time where in my life where I was like, okay, the £100 a month I spend, whatever, has real value, not just whether or not I whether or not I know I'm going to get paid out. It was like the value right now of peace of mind is massive. And that was where like, I was thinking that, like you're saying there, thinking if I was an advisor now, like that would have leaned into that massive. I would talk about every single client going, this is what happened to me. And it's not just about whether it pays out. It's about, because the problem is as well, it's like headspace.
Yeah.
You know, like you need to recover. So you're not, and if you're thinking about what am I going to do for money? What am I going to do? And I know we say that, but when you're in it, it was like, I remember it's so silly. It's like when my dog got sick, I paid like, I think I paid like 1,500 quid just to make sure he was okay. He wasn't even sick. But at the time, £1,500, I said to my wife, I was like, it doesn't matter, because it was worth it, penny, because of the way it made me feel. The quicker it removed the anxiety, the quicker it got, you could go back to being normal. And that's what insurance is. And I think the more insurance you have, like I was thinking, and I'm not saying you should get more and more and more, but the more covered you are, the more you're going to feel like, okay, cool.
But that comes back to that thing all the time about having, like I say this, I'm going to finish on this, right?
It was a long episode.
I'm going to finish on this bit, because I say this all the time to clients, but it's genuinely true. And this is literally, for me, this is where you start to understand what I mean about, there's a difference between a client understanding what they've got and why they're paying for it, as opposed to just having it because someone's told them. So we can afford, when we moved into our house, we could afford to get Sky, right? So we could have the Sky package where you've got Sky Sports, boxing channels, the lot. Keo's absolutely buzzing because he gets to watch every single channel, 136 quid a month. And I said, am I paying £136 a month? Why? We can afford it. what's the problem? I was like, because I don't think that £136 a month is worth paying so that you can watch the footy when you come home, when you feel like it. So we're going to pay £10 a month for Netflix instead. And that bit is the bit where when I speak to a client and I explain everything about the product and I go over the reasons why and we get them to understand it, if they don't see the value in the product,
yeah, they're going to go for Netflix.
It doesn't matter, right? So the value in the product is the difference between being a good advisor and explaining it in a way they understand that they can relate to, and being someone who's just shotting out loads of information to them and they just take what they want from it. So I always say to a client, and I tell them that story, I say, I can afford to pay for Sky, but I pay for Netflix, and I do not see the value in paying that amount of money for something to sit and watch on the TV. I pay £300 a month for my insurance because I see value in it. So it's trying to make a customer understand that it's not about the amount they're paying, it's about the value they see in what they're getting for their money. So whatever you're doing when you speak to clients, try and make sure that you're not trying to give them what they want, you're trying to give them value for what they need.
Yeah. And I wouldn't pay that much for Sky, but some people, and there are some people who will, and they see the value in that.
Keogh would,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
I win, so
but I like that the analogy though of the Sky versus Netflix, because there's a lot of people who will just do a £10 policy and go, yeah, okay, I've got my insurance. In fact, I did that with my dog, and I live with that is on this one. My dog insurance, the reason why it cost me £1,500, truthfully, I bought dog insurance that was really great when we first got him. This is the lesson I definitely think people do this. I bought really great. It was so good, covered everything. If the dog did everything, because the fear and the value of losing him was like, ah. He's 7 now. 2 years ago, I cancelled that really big policy because it was getting bigger and bigger. And then I was like, I'll get one. I got one for like £15. I think the other one was 125. This one was 15. And the one, it cost more to claim on it than it would have been to actually get it back. And that was when I was like, that was a big lesson of insurance of like, if it looks shit, it is shit. Like it is what,
That's what I'm saying. Some people, there's nothing wrong with it being shit. Some people are comfortable saying, I don't mind it being shit because that's what I don't see the value in it.
Yeah.
I would know I've got something. I don't want loads. I don't want to spend £100 a month on insurance because I don't see the value. That's fine.
But then with that though, and this is the thing with the dog thing, we are in a financial situation where that's okay to be able to afford that. So I just cancelled the entire policy and was like, sod it, I'm just going to do it. There's no point because this policy is a load of shit for me. But there's so many people who, and I'm talking dogs because people get it because they don't insure their kids, but they insure their pets. Like most people are not earning the type of money that someone like you or me will earn. And that would have been the difference between a dog being put down, not because they were completely healthy, because they didn't insure the pet. And what I'm saying with that is, imagine that to a kid. Not that you're going to put it down, but it's this thing of like, if you don't have the money, but you do have the money for that small insurance, don't think that your £100 policy is going to be anywhere near the same as that £10 policy you got from Compare the Market. Like it's not. And when you need it, you'll feel like an idiot, because I did with that. I remember going through that policy and thinking, what prat. Why did I paid for the whole massive insurance for like 5.5 years? If I waited another year, we could have gone. It would have been fine. We'd have got that payout on it.
Yeah, but you've learned the lesson in it, and that's what I mean. Where
the value then
you can give as much as you can to a client. It doesn't mean they're going to see the value in it, and that's up to them. And eventually, they will see the value in it. Some may never not. They might live very healthy lives and never ever need to use it, and think, I'm glad I never paid for that. Yeah. You don't know. And as an advisor to a client, it's making sure they're aware that they're insuring them. They're doing this insurance based on something happening to them next month. Where do you see value and where do you not? So just try and use as much as you can to be personable, relatable. Make sure that they're repeating back to you like what they understand, what they don't understand, and then let them gives them the power to then decide what they value most.
Absolutely. Any other parting words?
No, just those pattern words I've just
those very